Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Money and Politics. We're here on May 5, Cinco de Mayo, with a special show, and joining us from Los Angeles is one of our fellow members of Humbl Nation, Brian Kirchoff. Brian, thanks for joining us here on the ONI channel.
Hey, thanks for having me, Terry. I love your show. Thank you so much for doing it. It's an awesome thing to watch every day.
Well, thanks for that. And, you know, as a lot of other people who watch the show will know, I've said 40 years of investing does not help me when it comes to understanding NFTs, non-fungible tokens. So you were recommended by Rebecca, who most people will know in Humbl Nation, and I'm glad to have you. And so let's just start, or actually before we start, just so we have a little bit of a background on you, and before we get into what NFTs are, I understand you're an actor, so give us, why don't you first a little background, and maybe we'll even recognize, oh yeah, I saw him in that thing.
You've probably heard my voice. Yeah, I'm an actor in Los Angeles. I've been doing a lot of voiceover work. I've worked on shows like The Punisher, The Umbrella Academy. Right now, there's a show called Dota, Dragon's Blood on Netflix. It's actually one of the top 10 shows in the world right now. And so I do a bunch of different voices on that as well. And, you know, I've been doing voiceover work for quite a long time. And I've been very fortunate on the acting front in terms of being able to, you know, basically support myself. And when the pandemic happened, you know, everything pretty much shut down like it did for everyone. And so the shows that I had lined up, they all pretty much disappeared. And so, you know, I just started exploring other things, and I'd always been into essentially dividend investing. But then I came across Humbl in December, and, you know, I just saw that and saw basically the vision. And it just blew me away. We're excited about what they're doing with these NFTs. It's just such a huge market that I think people don't realize, and that has completely not been tapped yet.
Well, you know, we talk about how the world is changing, and it keeps changing faster and faster. Yeah. I was saying, just as we were recording here, when I did local news, it took about 5 people to do what we're doing now. It used to be you had to have a satellite truck and spend thousands of dollars for what we can now do for just the cost of having an internet connection. And by the way, apologies to the audience if we freeze up here and there. Hopefully we won't. But that said, one of the ways it's changing the whole world is NFTs. And why don't we get into that? You were helping. You can help us understand this, I think, a bit more. So, what is your take on NFTs? And if you can, how will this benefit, let's say, among other, Humbl? And if it would be benefiting us as individual investors, maybe you could incorporate that too.
Okay, so yeah, I think the NFTs is going to be a huge industry. Similar to how the iPhone, you know, created this entire new infrastructure with cell phones and how we interacted with each other. You know, essentially, NFTs, anything digital can be turned into an NFT, whether it's a ticket, whether it's music, whether it's digital art. There's, you know, any of those things can be turned into an NFT, and when that happens, you know, it can be traded amongst different people. So as an example, I think one of the big things that Humbl has going for it is the fact that they acquired Tickery. Now, Tickery, basically, as we know, so they sell tickets, all right? Those tickets, in my opinion, are going to essentially be NFTs. Now, how does that help Humbl? Well, for one thing, you're no longer having to print out tickets. You're getting them digitally. Where are you getting them? You're getting them through your app, the Humbl app. So that will actually drive the download of that app as well. But here's the interesting thing. When an NFT, when you purchase the ticket, it goes onto your phone. Now, let's say you can't make the concert and you go ahead and transfer it to someone else. Well, the NFT could be set up so that basically you pay a fee, or the person receiving that ticket pays a fee, and that fee goes back to Humbl. Why? Because Humbl is the creator of the NFT. All right, which is why I think it's really that they're buying this creative studio out of Los Angeles, I believe it was. Because if they start creating all of their own NFTs, then essentially they are the creator, and they will be receiving money every time that NFT is transferred to someone else. And it's a huge potential, and it is limitless. I mean, it can be used for real estate contracts, like I said, textbooks, movies, music, like literally anything that can be digitized can be turned into an NFT. Now, our technology, I'm not sure where it is right now in terms of doing all of those things, but as we've seen, technology moves really fast when people are motivated.
Huh. So we were talking just before off camera that when you talk about a textbook, that right now, if I was in school or went back when I was in school, you buy a textbook at the bookstore and then you bring it back at the end of the year and sell it to them. Now there could be an NFT that I guess where the book is resold. Who would be benefiting if that textbook was an NFT and it's resold multiple times?
Well, essentially, I was actually just reading an article about this, and it's fascinating because the NFT can be basically set up in a way where if you have the book and you sell it to a friend of yours, okay, because you no longer have it, basically it was last semester, your friend, when they receive the book, could pay a fee, and that fee actually would go to the creator of the book. So let's say if Humbl created those textbooks, they could do it in that way where every time it's transferred, they're getting a fee for that transfer. Now, you as the person who bought the original NFT, you can sell that book to them, and you will get a fee for selling it, basically bringing it back to your campus bookstore. But in transferring to them, Humbl could also charge you a fee for that transfer, and it might be 1 or 2%, very small amount. Every NFT can be basically customized based on what the creator of that NFT wants to do.
Let's just talk briefly. How did you come to understand NFTs, and how long have you been an investor?
I actually have been an investor basically for the last several years. It really picked up last year when the pandemic hit because I had a lot more time on my hands, as a lot of people did. As far as NFTs, I've just been doing a lot of research. There's a lot of great papers out there. There's a lot of great people, basically just digging and trying to find out as much information as possible. And it's interesting because if you look at someone like Mark Cuban, he's all about NFTs, and even he said it's limitless with what you can do. And I think that if you look at what Humbl has been setting up, and if you look at what they did with Block 30, the NFTs is going to be huge, especially when it comes to business contracts, real estate contracts, obviously concert tickets. But in terms of my understanding of NFTs, it's just a lot of research and a lot of reading and talking to different people, and basically just making sure that my investment in Humbl, that I understand it, and I understand like what they're planning on doing. And what I think they're planning on doing is essentially going to change the world. It's going to be amazing.
Well, let's talk about Humbl. What are your thoughts now? When did you get into Humbl, number one? And then, I mean, like a lot of us, I bought my first share of Humbl in December 8th, so I was early to the party, relatively speaking. When did you get in? And given that so many people now are concerned about the value, what would you say to those Humbl investors who are concerned about whether they bought a pig in a poke, as they say?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I appreciate you asking it. I actually believe I got in about a week before you, around December 5th. And so I basically bought in then, and I originally found it on, just one of the stock forums. And I just put a little bit in there. And then after the first conference call, where they laid out their vision, I really saw what the potential of this was. And at that time, it was just potential because they were just starting out. All right, now we are 4 or 5 months later. They've already acquired Tickery. They've, are basically added, I think it was 17 new employees. Like, they're growing very quickly, and I think what you need to do as an investor, especially with a company like this that's just starting out, is understand the company and what is their motivation. All right. Now, I've seen I'm not an OTC person. Most stocks that I invest in are more dividend stocks. As an actor, I don't ever know when my next job is going to be. So what I do is basically I get into a point where, the dividends will help cover my costs for me, and I don't have to worry about necessarily working. When I came to Humbl, it was a completely different story, and I saw the potential for growth. So as far as those investors that are nervous about it, all I can say is that you have to believe in the people that are basically driving the bus. And do your research, find out, about the different people that they've hired. And the fact that they're hiring people, that means that there's income coming in. We know there's income from the ETXs. We know there's income coming from Tickery, and their income streams are increasing. We're just getting out of the pandemic. Things are just starting to open up, so I am the person. I'm a buy and hold investor. I don't flip. I don't believe in just buying and selling the same day or the same week. I see this company, I understand that it's a long-term hold. And if you're not willing to hold it for, even the next 6 months, don't bother, because it's, you're going to lose money in the long run, because this is going to go very, very high in my opinion. And I think that this is going to be a world-changing type of company. And I don't say that lightly, because as actors, our reputations are basically our most important things.
Just today, there was actually a WhatsApp. I got a news, actually it was on Yahoo Finance, that WhatsApp is doing peer-to-peer in Brazil, I guess, starting with the number bank. And so Humbl is on the vanguard, but it seems like I bring that up because while Humbl is on the vanguard of this, but you also have other companies then trying to move into the space. Yeah. But we have successful phone companies. We have, Humbl. Also, this, I think, is why when you're doing the NFTs and the ETXs, it goes to show, and the studio, as we were talking about, how Humbl has different lines, not to mention Tickery, revenue lines, that you're buying the whole ball of wax, so to speak, and you almost have 4 or 5 different divisions within Humbl that could be very successful. And it's interesting to note, just historically where we are, that we have countries around the world, and on the last investor call, Brian was saying that you have about 70 or 100 countries around the world where cash is still the primary instrument of transactions, and that is a drag on an economy, because how much cash are you going to carry around as an individual, especially if you're in an area where, it maybe is a high crime area. You don't want to be walking around with a lot of cash on you. So not to pontificate, but my point is that just as you say, to understand the company, let's talk a little bit about, and let's speculate a little bit, just so I can kind of get a feel, knowing what you know and how you've watched what I've said and what you've read from other sources. Where would you, I didn't see the closing price because we're talking right now as the market closed. We're in the neighborhood of $1.45. Where would you guess Humbl would be, let's just say 6 months from now or so, in December, at the end of the year? Where would you guess?
Well, first of all, let me highlight a point that you just made in terms of WhatsApp getting into Brazil. Humbl, companies understand that there's a lot of money to be made in the peer-to-peer and the NFTs. That's why there's so many companies jumping into it. Humbl is 2 to 3 years ahead of all of those companies, because if you watch what they did with Block 30, they basically already have the technology and they built it all on the blockchain. So we are far ahead of those companies, and it's great to have that competition, because that basically allows you to push forward, and it makes it so that you don't get lazy. In terms of where the stock is going to go, I think over the next month we're going to have a lot of big announcements. I think it's definitely going to be over $10 by the end of the year. I'm thinking probably $25 to $30 per share, just based on what I've been tracking in terms of what their income is and the income streams that they're putting online. I think I last counted that they have like 5 different income streams. that they have. I think 2 to 3 of them are already online, and we're going to start seeing those results in Q1. And I'm very excited to see what happens Q2, Q3. I think that they're going to be not only profitable because their debt was paid off by the last Tesoro owner, but the fact that they're going to grow so incredibly quickly with all these different income streams. So, you know, I think it's kind of being conservative if I say it's going to be $20 per share by the end of the year, but I prefer to be conservative and be right as opposed to not conservative and be wrong.
I hope you're right. I don't know if it'll be 20. I'd be tickled, frankly, if it gets to 10. I mean, I thought initially we would be 10 in June and 20 in December. You know, I backed off a little bit just because you hit these lulls. And as I pointed out the other day, it's not just Humbl. I put up a graphic the other day that showed how Apple has been down for the last month. We've had kind of someone else said this today in responding, talking on my last video, that how we've been in a funky 6 weeks or so in the market where it's just kind of trending down and not knowing where to go. Part of that is natural. It happens. We were up, you know, before. You have a new administration. People are trying to figure that out. We're coming out of COVID. There's a lot of cross currents, you might say, impacting the financial world, which is why I think what I would say, and I think you're saying, is if you look at Humbl, don't look at what it's doing this week or this month. You gotta say, where is it going to be? Which is kind of why I wanted to ask you, you know, your gut feel. Where's it going to be in December? Where's it going to be a year from now? Where will it be in 2024? You know, 3 years from now. And who knows, because we're not up on NASDAQ now, we're on the OTC. You get on NASDAQ, you get the stock price up to $8, $10 a share, then you can start getting this wave of big money from the mutual funds, the pension funds, the private money managers, someone, you know, running money for someone who might be worth $100 or $500 million, and they're out there. So it'll move beyond the retail investors such as you and I. Let me
absolutely. If you
go ahead, go ahead and say
If you look at Yahoo, I believe 85% of their shares is owned by institutions. Right now, Humbl has, I believe, one institutional investor with about 10,000 shares. Imagine what's going to happen with where it's going to go once institutions start buying in. I mean, it's, in my opinion, going to go well over $100 per share. Now, that's probably a couple years away, you know, because they are building their foundation right now. And once they get that in place, we're going to see incremental increases. So we'll go up, we'll plateau, then we'll go up again, we'll plateau again, and it'll continue to go up like that until we get to the PayPal and Venmo type of, and Square type of levels. Because let's be honest, those are our competitors, and those are the ones that Humbl is going after a similar market, even though it's not necessarily in the United States. It's a much larger market. But, you know, when you're looking at price per share, those are the companies that I'm actually looking at and comparing them to.
And, you know, you talked earlier, not to keep you too long here, you talked earlier about dividend stocks, which is, you know, I think that's, I've sometimes wondered about actors, and how many times have we seen actors be in either a major motion picture or a hit television show, and then you never see them again. It's like they disappear after that. And if they're not careful with their money, then it will have all gone away for naught. But with NFTs, it occurred to me as you were talking earlier that if you were invested in something with an NFT where there might be a residual income, it might be akin to almost like a dividend investment where you could kind of have some, it would operate a bit differently, not exactly the same, but similar in the sense that there might be some residual income coming to you from having an NFT. Would you say I have that right?
The creator of the NFT is the one that will have the residual income. So if you just happen to buy an NFT, you don't have the rights essentially to, you can sell it and you'll get a profit if the price increases, you know, but to my knowledge, it's the creator, similar to music. Like with music, It's not the person that sings the song that's getting all the royalties. It's the person that wrote the song. All right. So if you look at any of these huge artists out there, you know, they're all trying to be a writer on the songs that they're making, simply because that the writers are the ones who are making those residual income, basically, or royalties. So if you want to create the NFT, you can set it up so that you're getting paid every time it changes hands. Absolutely. But if you're buying an NFT just to resell it, I don't think there's a situation where you would, unless you're in a contract with the original creator of the NFT, like some of these sports stars most likely are. As an example, you know, Humbl has signed on several sports stars from baseball. And so I'm fairly certain that those individuals will be getting residuals from those cards as they change hands. And Humbl will be getting a portion of that as well.
Yeah, so, okay, so it's almost a difference then. You could, it would be like in buying a stock where there isn't a dividend. You're going to, you're going to build your wealth by having the NFT go up in value, by holding an asset that increases. Okay.
Yes, it's like a work of art. If you buy a Monet, you know the Monet is eventually going to go up in price. You know, and then, you know, 4, 5, 10 years later, you sell it, you make a profit, you know, but you're not getting a dividend from that. Although, if you're talking about paintings, you could actually, you know, rent it out to various houses or various museums and, you know, receive a dividend in a sense that way. But I'm not sure how that would work with NFTs.
Well, here's what I would say to those who are confused. When
it can get very confusing.
20 years ago, on my other job, we were the first broadcaster in the state of Illinois to video stream. And back around the year 2000, 2001, I had to explain to people what the word broadband meant. And now it's just, you know, we use it interchangeably. It doesn't confuse us. We get it. I had to also explain back then what the word video streaming meant. And so we forget, and look at what we are doing as we speak here, talk of video streaming. We forget how quickly the world changes and how all of us are on that learning curve. And NFTs are just the latest example of something that comes along that's going to address a need, and we'll all, you know, become familiar with it. So folks, just don't feel like you're overwhelmed here if you don't get it on the first pass. Hopefully this interview has helped clear up some of it. Brian, you said you read some articles. If there's a source of people, where would you tell people to go if they want to read more or learn more about the NFTs?
You know, the best thing to do is just Google it. Just put, like, Google up NFT textbooks. And they actually have lots of articles there on how textbooks can be utilized as NFTs and how those contracts can be set up so that the publisher of the textbooks get paid every time that it transfers hands. But yeah, I mean, Google's your friend, and, you know, that's, you know, it's similar to Google. Humbl's kind of issuing or ushering in a new digital age. You know, we're going to be doing a lot more with our phones over the next few years.
Well, and I would expect, like everything else, you can probably go to YouTube and where we will be seen, but also there's probably any number of other explanatory videos, I would guess, that would be there on how NFTs work.
Yeah, there's so much information at our fingertips now. It's not like it was, you know, when computers first started. It's like you don't have to go to the library and go through that little catalog card anymore. You know, you just punch in what you want on the computer and it just pops up. It's amazing.
Yeah, we're dating ourselves. What's a catalog? Brian, where before we close out, where'd you grow up? Are you from the Los Angeles area originally?
Actually, I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
I'm sorry,
grew
from
up
where?
in a little suburb, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
Milwaukee.
Very good.
So I grew up in the beer capital of the world. So, and I moved out here, you know, specifically for acting. And, you know, I love Wisconsin, but I don't love the snow.
Yeah, no.
I like sunny California.
It gets a little chilly up there in Wisconsin. And I'm from St. Louis originally, another beer capital there, where, you know, Anheuser-Busch.
Great barbecue.
And, In fact, my very first baseball game I ever saw were the Cardinals playing the then Milwaukee Braves. So,
you're really aging yourself.
yeah, that was before. Well, it was way back. It was the last year that Stan Musial was playing, which is why my neighbor's mother took us to the ball game so we could see Stan Musial before he retired.
Wow, that's awesome.
That is back away. Before we close out, do you have any last words you want to share?
It's tough when the stock goes, up and down or up and down, but again, this is just a long-term hold. This is a generational wealth type of stock. So just stick with it and, just walk away from your computer if you need to, but the foundation is being built, and Mr. Foote and his team, they're doing a phenomenal job. And, when we're sleeping, they're working. So know that some big things are coming.
Yeah, I agree. We're all looking forward to the call on Friday. Let me ask you, I wasn't going to ask, but I don't know if you wanted to say anything. Are you concerned about these B shares that so many of the people in Humbl Nation are concerned about, or what's your thoughts on that?
No, not at all. Here's the thing. B shares were issued, and it's my understanding that they were issued to the former holders of Block 30, which basically Humbl bought, but I'm not worried about that. And that brings up a great point. There's a lot of people who do want the stock price to go down, all right, and they're going to do and say whatever they can to make it go down, simply because either they want to hurt the company, which is unfortunate, or they want to buy cheaper shares. So don't let all that type of chatter scare you away from the position you have. Because there are people out there who don't necessarily have the best intentions, and it's like that in pretty much every industry. So don't worry about the B shares. Addressing it on Friday for the conference call, but it's not something that I'm actually I'm not a bit worried about it. And once the institutional investors come in, it's a moot point. The bashers and the bears, they're not going to have anything else to hold on to.
I've told the story before. I made a lot of money in Cisco back in the mid-90s. 6 months after I bought it, I was down $2,000. I mean, I initially started with 11,000 and went down to 9,000 in the spring of '94. Because the whole overall market was down. It's a little bit, where we are now. The market's been kind of funky, as we said. The reason I bring it up, though, folks, you might feel badly now, but imagine if you sold now, and Brian's right, and it's $20, or even if it's $10 in December, how are you going to feel at that point? And I think if you know that you had, some thousands of shares and you sold, and later it goes to $20, and 3 years from now it might be at $50, how are you going to feel on a residual basis, stabbing yourself in the heart every time you look at it and think about what you could have been worth had you not sold it when it was momentarily down back in the spring of 2021. So I think, as Brian said, to be a long-term holder and not to be reacting to every little pothole you hit along the way, because the whole world of investing is always where you're going to have these different currents coming in. As we said, oil goes up and down, the Chinese do something, the Russians do something, there's things beyond our control. You have to just ignore a lot of things and take the long view, I think.
Yeah, the only thing that you can control is your own actions, and when you have a solid investment like this, the only action for me, in my opinion, to take is just to sit and hold it, and eventually, over time, you're going to be greatly rewarded.
Right. Well, Brian, thanks so much for joining us. We'll hope to be in touch with you, and maybe, I'm not sure that I'm going out to San Diego in December. I would love to. It's a great place to be, especially in December if you're from the Midwest. But maybe we'll get together out there then in person.
I would love that. And I also want to give a quick shout out to the Humbl Guardians, all those people out there who are actually doing the due diligence and sharing with everybody and doing what they can to help promote Humbl and get their name out there. And definitely San Diego, I will be there. And if you need any recommendations on where to stay, like I'll let you drink.
That sounds great. Brian, thanks again.
All right. Cool. Thank you so much.